Hello everybody. This is number 30 in our series Coping with COVID. Today what I want to do is give you a little update about vaccines. Certainly they've been a home run. Really, a home run. Now why do I say home run? What's the analogy here? Well, it's pretty simple. What do we want a vaccine for? What's really important to you is that you don't get sick, you don't die. And on a community basis, we want to stop the transmission of the virus, so tamp it down enough so that like smallpox, like polio, it stops altogether and doesn't keep going. So we're making some progress. This is just slower than anybody would like, but it's certainly working. So let's just look for a minute at the two vaccines that have emergency use authorization, the Pfizer-BioNTech and the Moderna. In Pfizer, I just have to look at my numbers here, 21,728 got the vaccine. This is the volunteers. 21,720 got the placebo. They were followed over time, as you know, and before the study started, they set out some what they call primary endpoints. And in science and in medicine, you like to know what it is you're looking for at the end. Don't go trying to decide later, but up front. And they decided, based on the early studies of the vaccine, but how long it took for the antibody level to come up, that what they would do would be to look at all the infections that began 7 days after the second shot. So now we're going to look at the numbers that are of cases of COVID-19, symptomatic infection, that occurred after the 7 days after the second shot. All right, so with that criteria, 8 people who got vaccinated developed symptomatic infection. 162 who got the placebo got symptomatic infection. That's the 95% success rate, or efficacy. We can go another step further, though, and say, well, how many people got a severe infection? And among the vaccinated patients, 1. Just 1. But of the placebo patients, 9. So again, pretty striking. Only 1 person had a severe infection, didn't have to go to the hospital, didn't die, but nevertheless a severe infection. The Moderna vaccine, 15,210 patients, volunteers got the vaccine. Exactly the same number got the placebo. Pretty much the same definition of symptomatic infection. The only difference here was that their criteria was to look at 14 days after the second shot. It's just the way they set it up in the front. How did it work out? 11 people in the vaccination group got symptomatic infection, whereas 185 in the placebo group got infected, or got symptomatic infection. That's a 94% efficacy rate. So both are really, really effective. But again, let's look at the severe infections now. In the vaccinated group, it was 0. 0. In the placebo group, it was 30, including 1 person who died. So both of these vaccines have been extremely effective in preventing any level of symptomatic infection, and they've been extremely successful in preventing severe infection. So if you get this vaccine, the chance of developing severe infection is nil. Not impossible, but very, very low. The chance of dying is, well, no one did. Even though many of the people in these trials were high-risk people, older people, people with underlying diseases that would put them at higher risk if they got the disease of going on to a more severe infection. That's why I call it a home run. Now there's 3 others coming along. One is the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, another is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, another is the Novavax vaccine. And they've each have put out some information, but none of it's gone through the FDA yet. We don't have an FDA report, so I'm not going to try and give numbers based on company press releases. But I will say this, they're certainly looking promising. Looks like the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is going to be, well, it's going to have their review on February 26th. So by the time you see this, we may already know what the answer is as far as that getting approved. That has the advantage of just one shot instead of two. And that comes up to the next question. What if I was given the opportunity to get the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine today or soon, but I thought, well, gee, if I wait for the Johnson & Johnson, I only have to have one shot instead of two shots. Should I wait? And the answer is no. No, you should not wait. And if you're someone, especially, who's older or at high risk because of an underlying disease, don't wait. You don't know how long it's going to take before the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is actually available to you. And just shrink that time down that you're at risk. Get that first dose and get it right away if you can. Because remember from those charts, even after the first dose, the risk goes down really quickly. That brings up a second thing. We've heard this, trying to do this in England and some other areas. What if I just get the first dose? Can I skip the second dose? First dose looks like it does a good job. Yeah, it does. But stick with the science. The science was that it took the second dose, the booster shot, to really get the antibody levels up. And although we don't know the answer yet, it may well be that that's going to help carry us through a much longer time of being immune. So get your second shot. Don't say, oh, I don't really need it. What about these variants? There's the one in England, the UK variant, one in the South Africa variant. What's important to remember is that viruses mutate all the time. There's something like 30,000 different mutations or variants that have been seen in this virus already. But these two have been troubling. The one in the United Kingdom is more transmissible, meaning it's easier to get it from me to you than it is with the original viral strain. And maybe it's more pathogenic, meaning it's more likely to cause damage. You know, that's the thing about the coronavirus. It has two characteristics that are very important and why it's such a pandemic. One is easy to transmit, and second is, in the right person, it causes very severe disease. It looks like, fairly definitively now, that the vaccines that are going to be out, that are out or will be out, will be effective against that variant. The concern is the South African one. Unfortunately, in my view, the media really hypes this stuff up and kind of gets us all anxious and nervous. Again, like I said before, these variations occur all the time. They're going to occur. There's going to be more of them. Here's the good part. Two things. As we get more and more people vaccinated, that means you can't transmit the virus. They only mutate in a person. If I can't get infected with it, it can't mutate in me, and then I can't pass it on to you. So the more of us that get vaccinated, the more we slow the transmission of it, the better. Brings up the other point, though. Why still wear a mask? This is one of the reasons. Because you can't transmit it if you're being careful. If you're social distancing, if you got the mask on, washing your hands and so on, staying out of crowded spaces, you can't transmit the virus. And again, so if it mutates in me, I can't pass it on to you if I'm still wearing a mask. So until we get past all this, that's a good thing. Now here's the other really good thing though. With these new vaccines, like the mRNA vaccines and the others, they can be, if you will, tweaked a little bit, just like the influenza vaccine. Every year they adjust it a little bit based on what they think is going to come. That can be done, and it can be done very quickly. Very, very quickly. And already the big manufacturers, the big pharmaceutical companies, are making changes for that South African variant. And they'll be able to get that tested quickly and incorporated if it becomes necessary. Same thing if another mutant comes along, and another mutant is likely to come along. We're going to be with this virus for years. It's not just going to go away, probably, because because it's so worldwide, it's going to get around. But again, the message is the same. Let's get vaccinated, and let's follow the basic rules of masking and social distancing. Now here's something we hear about all the time. It's in the newspaper, it's on the radio, on TV. Well, it's just not working. We're not getting the vaccines out. What's wrong? So let's go back. Operation Warp Speed was, in my opinion, really a great home run. In less than a year, 2 vaccines were created, tested, manufactured, and reviewed by the FDA, and then made available. That's incredible speed. And, okay, it would have been nice if they even had more vaccines available by the end of December, but there were reasons why they couldn't get them all out. They aren't simple to manufacture, but they're making great progress, much faster than has ever happened before. So why did it work? It worked because, if you will, there was a czar on top, and General Pinna, and the person who actually led the process. But it was all about getting all the steps involved to work smoothly. They had a single goal: get a vaccine made, manufactured, tested, and approved by December. They did. So they cut out all the bureaucracy. They wouldn't allow anybody to kind of put their hand up and say, no, we can't do it that way. We always do it this way. They got everybody together. They had agreements up front as to how the whole system was going to work, how these trials were going to work, what the endpoints were going to be. They paid the companies up front to start manufacturing the vaccines, so that even if the whole thing failed, the company was still whole because they'd been given enough money to manufacture. Well, it turned out, then we had the vaccine available right away. The problem with Operation Warp Speed, if you want to call it a problem, is it stopped at the border of the states. And then it was up to the states to get it distributed. Unfortunately, in my view, again, what I think has happened is that many of the states didn't take on the same approach. They didn't have a single goal, which is get it shots into people's arms and get it done quickly and efficiently. Well, I think everybody wanted to do that, but it wasn't the czar concept and the top-down, it must be done this way, cut out all the bureaucracy. And so, to use an old line, culture, top strategy every time. Culture, top strategy every time. And if the culture is, we're going to do it this way, we've always done it that way, and so on, it just slows the process down. Doesn't mean anybody is bad or doing the wrong thing. It just means that that's just the way things work, and it's hard to overcome that type of, I call it the 1,000 points of veto that are always available to slow a process down. But to end on a very positive note, it is working. And again, these vaccines are home runs. These are fantastic, fantastic. There's very few vaccines that have ever been as good as these vaccines, especially when you stop and think about what's the most important thing. I don't want to die from this infection. I don't want to die. I don't want to get a severe infection. These vaccines have just eliminated that possibility. That's pretty fantastic. Thank you.